What's the right background for the remote environment? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Brummett, and over the last 4 years I've been reading, writing, researching and talking about remote presence. The B in my ABCDE model of remote presence is background. And now 4 years later, I'm being asked this question as often as when I first started. So by way of reply, there's a number of things I would suggest my clients consider. The first is this. One of my pet peeves has always been the fake scenic background. And this view has been reinforced by research published in June last year by Harvard Business Review. They interviewed 465 professional men and women, and although the context was interviewing for a job, there was very definitely an opinion expressed that aligns with mine. Ditch the fake scenic background. We're not really on top of the Empire State Building or in front of the Eiffel Tower or on the Great Wall of China. Don't use it. So the question becomes, what do I use in its place? And I think there are options here. Firstly, we can create a point of connection if we upload something electronically with which our audience can relate. For example, our garden, our pets, our kids, our pride and joy. The value of that is before the meeting starts, we can help lower tension and increase rapport in those few moments of small talk. And that helps make you memorable. Over the last year, pretty much every organisation, large or small, has created its own corporate logoed electronic background. My view on these, they're perfectly fine. I think there's a practical and a personal consideration. Let's deal with the practical. First of all, we've just got to make sure that our cable or broadband connection can handle it. Even in the last couple of weeks, I've had some very weird experiences of watching people in remote meetings against the background of their corporate logoed electronic backdrop. And they're coming into shot and out of shot. There's a hand, then there's not a hand. There's a face, then there's no face. And candidly, it's weird and distracting for the audience. So we just need to make sure that that's covered and can take it. My second comment's more personal. If as a leader we want to be known as being innovative, creative, original, unique, and that's part of the brand values we want to communicate, and yet we dial into a call with 8 or 10 of our colleagues, all of whom have got on the exact same corporate electronic background as us, then I'd suggest that's a brand conflict and we need to change it. We know that platforms, whatever video conferencing platform you use, there's some capability to blur or hide our physical background. And I understand why we'd want to do that, because some of us don't want our co-workers and our clients to see our home. It's so much more intimate. And yet if we do choose to show it, there are some practical considerations. The obvious one is it should be neat and tidy, not distracting. Secondly, don't sit with a mirror behind you because you'll create infinity for the audience when they look at you on camera, and that's distracting. Think about light, because if you sit with a window behind you at different times of the day and the year, you can be silhouetted if you haven't got the right lighting in front of you to counterbalance it. It sounds so simple, and yet just take a look on social media. Even in the last 3 months, you will find journalists, for example, in the UK, there is a political editor who was caught on camera with as a backdrop behind them a poster of all of the British Prime Ministers since the Second World War. Or perhaps you've caught the European expert on Brexit, who was caught on camera with R2-D2 and a snail randomly, on the mantelpiece behind him in shot. Maybe you've seen the journalist who has much of a reputation for moving around his own bookshelf and his own books to create even more prominence when he's on camera and he's interviewing politicians. There was a very amusing instance recently of a minister who had a broom propped up against the door behind him to keep people out. Who knows, maybe it was his kids or his press advisor because the interview didn't go well. My point is, we can't not see the background. So let's make it work for us. Let's make sure that we are framed assertively in shot so that if we choose to show our background, we're minimising that which we actually do show. At the end of the day, if we get these principles right, then where the audience is focused and where their attention is primarily drawn is us. And leaders who have presence make sure that that's precisely what happens.